Hey everyone, my name is Jax, and in this video, I'll be giving you some tips that I think you should know before playing another game of surviving the aftermath. Tip number 1, utilize roads as much as you can. Roads are amazing. They cost nothing but time to build them, and they're typically used to lay out your cities, but they actually make your people move faster and collect resources quicker because they move faster, thus creating more resources for your colony. And don't forget, you can upgrade your roads to pavement, which makes them move even faster, thus creating more resources quicker. And the best part of it all, it's still all free to make. But of course, you have to spend the science points to research pavement, but the construction cost of roads and pavement is still free. As you can see, we're building roads in a way that avoid the pollution piles. So that way our people are not going through pollution. You can use roads to your advantage to make sure that your people are not walking through these pollution piles and not getting irradiated, thus saving you those precious iodine pills. This might change in the future, and quite honestly, it wouldn't surprise me. But I'm still surprised that roads and pavement have no construction resources required whatsoever. So for now, utilize them as much as you can. Tip number 2, use specialists to gather things that are near pollution, especially in the early game when you don't have access to the world map and thus aren't using specialists to gather things on the world map. The reason why you want to use specialists to gather things that are near pollution, for stuff like wood or berries or whatever it may be, is that they're actually not affected by pollution at all. They can't get irradiated. This helps you save your settlers from becoming irradiated, thus saving you iodine pills. This is a double whammy because 1, you are saving iodine pills as well as gathering resources, and you're making use of specialists early game before the world map's even available. Another great use for specialists early game is using them to fight fauna, whether you're hunting them for food or they're hostile. The reason for this is if you use regular settlers, they're prone to becoming injured, thus you have to use medicine. A specialist only has to recover their health by going to the recovery speed of their HP, as seen right here. She's going to recover 30 HP every 12 hours. Whereas a settler, they're probably going to have to take a lot more time and probably have to go to the medical tent to recover. Here's another perfect example of what I mean by using specialists near pollution piles. We have a nice large wood pile right here, right next to a medium pollution pile. To prevent our settlers from becoming irradiated, let's go ahead and send our specialists here because they're not going to be affected by the pollution at all. Tip number 3 is always keep at least one carrier available. You can see how many carriers you have in the top left corner. You can see here we have 3, but always keep at least one so that way you can build buildings and bring resources to building sites to build the buildings. This is especially important early game when you're expanding so quickly. Make sure to look at your resource balances and see where you can cut people. For example, you might have plenty of food, but you need to build more roads or buildings. Take someone off food to gain more carriers to build things quicker. Tip number 4 is to build schools for children. When they grow up to be adults, they can gain the educated trait, as you can see right here, which gives a 30% production speed boost. Considering that children can't actually work jobs, but rather just act as carriers, this is a no-brainer in my opinion. So make sure to build schools for all your children so everyone in your colony can be educated and get that nice 30% production speed boost. Tip number 5. Identify what your colony needs and pivot to those needs when necessary. You can actually get an executive summary of how your colony feels by hovering over to the top left corner and seeing the comfort and welfare. There is another third option called entertainment, but that ties into comfort. You can see that there's a -16 demand for entertainment, which translates over to the -16 restlessness. Together, all 3 of these items make overall happiness, and you want to make sure your overall happiness is as high as possible. Otherwise, you run the risk of your colonists wanting to leave the colony, and that's no good for anyone. Being able to identify problems either ahead of time or currently and pivoting to address those problems is a great skill to have. In this case, we need to get rid of those tents that we have here and build shanties or tenements to get that happiness boost. Having better shelter is going to remove that poor shelter debuff that we're receiving on our comfort, and that's going to make overall happiness go higher. Let's go ahead and take a look at this example. If you hover over food, we can see we have no plant-based nutrition whatsoever. So what does that mean we have to do? Well, we should pivot whatever current research we are doing and changing the path. So what does that entail? Well, we're not going to stop any current research, but we're going to stop going down the current path we're going. So we'll finish up whatever research we have and go on basic farming. And the reason why we need basic farming is because that's going to open us up to allow us to farm vegetables. Vegetables are what's going to provide that plant-based nutrition that we desperately need. Because if we get a malnourishment buff from the lack of vegetables or plant-based nutrition, it's going to be very bad for our colony, and it's going to reduce overall happiness, and people might leave. Tip number 6. Don't be afraid to keep restarting the game until you get a map with water in the front to help you with food and water production. It's a huge boon to help manage your resources by being able to build fisheries and water collectors on both sides of the map. By having water on both sides of the map at the front, you basically double the potential of water and food production. You don't have to rely on bodies of water throughout the map that are more inland, but rather you can stay focused on the starting area. Something as simple as this is actually pretty easy to overlook, but it should be something that you should look for in all your games. This is especially true if you are attempting to do higher difficulty or you just need a bit more help with the game. And there's nothing wrong with setting your game up so you can have the best possible outcome. This is my opinion, and it's just for flair, but I prefer looking at water rather than barren soil. So it's a nice addition to add to the bit of ambiance. Tip number 7. When it comes to water resource production, water wells are overpowered. They are probably the best water producing building in the game, with the exception of drilled wells, but that's the upgraded version of water well. Water wells require no labor to produce water, and that's what makes them so great. They can also be placed almost anywhere on the map, assuming that there is actually some fertile soil, as their water production levels are dictated by the fertility of the soil. They're also not limited by bodies of water like water collector or a water pump. With such minimal management required for this building, it's pretty much a place and forget building. Of course, you might have to decontaminate it, but that applies to almost every building. You can also upgrade water wells to drilled wells. It does require a little bit of science points, but hey, it's on the way to wind power anyway, so you might as well pick it up. Tip number 8. Build survivor outposts on the world map to help replenish your population after bad catastrophes or events that might reduce your population. And in this case, we really want to focus on biomes that have high survivors, or higher amount of survivors. You can tell if there's a high amount of survivors by looking in the bottom right corner and seeing that there are 5 full bubbles under survivors, and this is an urban biome, so it's going to have a high amount of survivors. Same thing for this one, and you can see that there is a difference in how many survivors every 12 hours are found if you hover over them. So this one is 0.66 every 12 hours. This one's 0.54 every 12 hours. And both of these have the same amount of survivor bubbles. But if we go here, there's only 2 here. And we actually put a survivor outpost here to test this. And this is a plains biome with only 3 survivor bubbles. But if we hover over it, it's only 0.32. So in order to maximize the amount of survivors that you get from your survivor outposts, put them in high survivor biomes. And that's it for the list of 7 helpful tips for surviving the aftermath. What did you think? Did you learn something new, or did you already know some of these? Let me know in the comments down below. If this really helped you out, I'd greatly appreciate a like, and perhaps even to subscribe, especially if you want to see more content like this for surviving the aftermath. I hope this was helpful, and I'll see you all next time. Have a good one.